You see someone across the fire. Your chest does something strange. Your hands feel useless. You forget what you were saying. That feeling you just imagined, it's 300,000 years old, and the way ancient humans dealt with it was nothing like what you'd expect. Today, love has a system. Dating apps, dinner dates, meeting someone's parents after 3 months, proposals, weddings, anniversary dinners. We've built an entire architecture around how two people are supposed to end up together. But for 99% of human history, none of that existed. No apps, no restaurants, no rings, no Valentine's Day, just people, fire, and that feeling in your chest with nowhere to go. So what did they actually do with it? Let's start with what the bones tell us. When anthropologists study ancient human remains, they find something nobody expected to find: pairs. In a site called Valdaro, Italy, archaeologists uncovered 2 skeletons from 6,000 years ago, a man and a woman, facing each other, foreheads touching, arms wrapped around one another. They had been buried that way intentionally. Someone arranged them like that. Someone thought it mattered how they spent eternity. That's not survival behavior, that's love behavior. But here's the real question. How did they get there? How did 2 people in a world with no privacy, no personal space, and no way to be alone actually fall for each other? In 2012, anthropologist Helen Fisher ran brain scans on people who described themselves as deeply in love. The results were startling. The brain in love looks almost identical to the brain on cocaine. The same reward circuits fire. The same dopamine floods in. The same obsessive focus on one thing. Fisher argued this wasn't a cultural invention. It wasn't something society taught us. It was biology. Ancient and modern brains fall in love exactly the same way, which means 300,000 years ago, someone sat across a fire completely unable to stop thinking about one specific person. The feeling was identical to yours. The world around it was completely different. So how did it actually work? The first thing to understand is that ancient humans lived in groups of 15 to 50 people. You knew everyone. You were born knowing everyone. There was no stranger across a crowded room because there were no strangers and there were no rooms. So attraction didn't strike like lightning the way movies tell you it does. It built slowly, through proximity, through watching, through small moments repeated over months and years. You noticed who was generous when food was scarce. You noticed who stayed calm when predators were close. You noticed who made people laugh around the fire at night. Attraction in the ancient world wasn't about a moment. It was about evidence. Slow, accumulated, undeniable evidence that this specific person was worth betting your survival on. But how did you signal it? You couldn't send a message. You couldn't ask a mutual friend. You couldn't accidentally like a 3-year-old photo. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have found remarkably consistent courtship patterns across completely unconnected cultures. The first signal was food. Among the Hadza in Tanzania, men who were interested in a woman would bring meat specifically to her, not to the group, to her. In a world where food was survival, this was the equivalent of showing up with flowers, a reservation at a nice restaurant, and a 6-figure salary all at the same time. It said, I am capable. I thought about you specifically. You matter more than the others. The second signal was craft. Remember those shell beads from 100,000 years ago? The ones where someone walked 40 kilometers just to collect shells, then spent hours drilling holes with stone tools. Researchers now believe many of those weren't just personal decoration. They were gifts. The oldest love language on earth wasn't words. It was, I made this. I spent time on this. I thought about you while I made it. The third signal was music. That 40,000-year-old bone flute found in Germany. Anthropologists believe instruments like this were almost certainly used in courtship. Every culture on earth independently invented music. And in every culture on earth, music is tied to attraction. This is not a coincidence. The person who could play, who could make something beautiful out of nothing, was signaling something important. Creativity, intelligence, time, the ability to think beyond just surviving today. But here's where ancient love gets complicated. It wasn't just your decision. In small groups where every person's survival affected everyone else's, who you paired with was community business. Anthropologist Christopher Boehm studied dozens of hunter-gatherer societies and found that most had informal systems for managing pair bonds. Elders observed, groups discussed. Certain pairings were encouraged. Others were strongly discouraged, not through rules written on paper, through social pressure, which in a group of 30 people you depend on completely, is far more powerful than any law. If the group didn't approve, Life became very uncomfortable, very fast. So ancient love had a filter that modern love has mostly lost. The people who knew you best, who had watched you your entire life, had a vote. And sometimes that vote overruled everything your chest was telling you. But what about when it worked? When the feeling was mutual? When the group approved? When two people chose each other? What did commitment look like without a ceremony, without a ring, without a certificate? It looked like behavior. You moved your sleeping space next to theirs. You hunted or gathered together. You shared food before others. You defended each other in arguments. There was no announcement. There was no single moment. Commitment was something you demonstrated every day through 1,000 small choices that everyone around you could see. In a world with no privacy and no walls, love was completely visible. You couldn't fake it. You couldn't perform it for a weekend and hide the rest. The people around you watched you love someone the way we watch a series. Every episode, no skipping. Today, we have more ways to find love than any humans in history. Algorithms that analyze your preferences, filters for height, job, distance, hundreds of potential partners in your pocket at all times. And we are lonelier than any humans in history. Ancient humans had no choice but to love the people in front of them, to notice them slowly, to prove themselves through action, to be witnessed completely, flaws and all, by people who had nowhere else to go. There was no exit, no better option 2 swipes away, no version of love that didn't require showing up every single day. Those 2 skeletons in Valdaro, foreheads touching, buried facing each other 6,000 years ago. Nobody told them to do that. No tradition required it. No religion demanded it. Someone who loved them just thought that's how they should spend forever. And maybe that's the oldest thing about us. Not the tools, not the fire, not the language. The fact that we have always, in every era, in every condition, found someone across the fire and felt something we didn't have words for and tried anyway.